All right, I don't know what time it is on your clock, but I know what I'm getting ready for. It is time for the Professional CISO Podcast with David Malaco.
Welcome, one and all, Professional CISO Show. I'm your host, David Malaco. All right, gang. Again, like I said, in an effort to get more content out to you and more quality time with our guests, I'm getting rid of the set pieces. So the only ones we're going to have is we're going to have a huge reminder. So first off, we have partnered with CISO XC. We got Randy Potts, James Shaw, Cecil Pineda over there with CISO XC and all their folks over there. We're going to be recording at their local conferences, and I say local, wherever they decide to have it. So we were in Austin on Wednesday, so you're going to see some content come out from that. Great gathering down there. I think it was their inaugural one, which was really cool to see a lot of those folks come together, and the DFW crowd come down and support those folks as well. But just know that coming up next, CISO XC conference for DFW is on April 17th. Come out and join us. Come see. Maybe I put you in the seat and we have a little chat or something like that. I usually do, you know the event series. We put you in the chair for about five to 8 minutes and just kind of talk about what's going on at the conference and what's on your mind. So stay tuned for that. And then just want to talk about like, follow, share. Best way to make sure you're getting the great content that you've been getting, hit that follow button on Spotify and Apple. Subscribe on YouTube, maybe even hit the little bell so when we get new content out, you'll know about it right away. And follow us on LinkedIn. We put a lot of this, a lot of our clips, a lot of thought leadership out there for you. And we highlight our exclusive guests that we have, like our one today. So, and of course, share us with friends or colleagues. We appreciate that. All right, so today we have Alain Espinosa with us. Alain, how you doing, man?
I'm well, David. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. It's an honor,
dude, man.
Really
It's great to have you. I know we've done some talks together. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we know each other from kind of around the area as well. But I think the thing for me, which we'll get into really deep today, is your experiences around boards, things like that. Obviously, your long tenured experience in operations and kind of where you're at today. But let's get started with Alain himself. So what I like to do is I want the history. So let's talk, Alain. When did technology hit you as a young man? Like, was it single digit, maybe teen years? And then kind of talk me through when cyber came into your life, if it was the same time or different. And then kind of talk me through that career arc until today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the technology bug hit me when I was around 8 years old. Nice. I had an Atari computer, actually. Yes. I didn't know how to do anything on it, to be frank with you, other than play this one game called Fraction Fever that my aunt got me because she wanted it to be educational. But I had this thing where I remember saying at a young age, someday I'm going to work in computers, right? Long story short, a lot of things happen after that, let's just say, between 8 and about 20 years old, right, approximately, other career choices that I was looking at. But I ended up, I was working at a bank at one point as a teller. And I met a gentleman through an association I was a part of, and I mentioned to him that I was interested in computers, as I put it at the time, right? This is before we talked about networking or security or anything else. And he was gracious enough to tell me that he would help me learn, that he would teach me. So I had a couple of lessons with him. He got me an interview with a small consulting company he worked at in New York City. And I went to the interview with my resume at the time where I didn't know jack, to be honest with you. But at the time, Microsoft Access was really hot. It was hot stuff. If you knew Access, you made a lot of money, you were in high demand, right? So I put on there Microsoft Access as one of the items that I knew. This is a previous life, by the way. I don't do this anymore on my resume or else, I promise. I changed my ways. But I'm sitting with the gentleman, we're talking, and he stops the interview and he says to me, "You don't really know this, do you?" Yeah, I got caught, right? And I just looked at him and I said, "You know what, sir? I don't. And I'm sorry." And he said to me, "I like you." And I thought, this is really strange. I just lied to this man. And he's acknowledged it. And he's like, "But I like you." I'm like, "How is that?" And he said to me, he said, "You know, Alain, in technology, I could find people that could be easily trained when it comes to the technology itself, that some that are very well trained, but they can't communicate well." And he said, "I like how you communicate," and he hired me. So, I mean, I literally got my first job. I didn't know squat. And we don't have time to go into the stories of what that looked like, working at a help desk and answering the phone and not knowing anything really, or practically anything, let's say, right? Very little. But that's how my career got started, you know? And from there it was, you know, kind of moving from smaller companies to larger companies like Siemens and Google's and Google and others. And it was a little over 10 years ago that I realized that for me, security was always on my mind, including as a kid when I locked my parents out of their house, and that's a different conversation. But true story. It was always on my mind. It was always a part of whatever I did in IT. I was always thinking security before security was a thing, if you will, before InfoSec, cybersecurity, any of that sort of was coined at least, right? And, you know, about a little over 10 years ago, I realized, oh, there's this NIST thing coming out and CSF, and, you know, people are starting to talk about information security, at least as we called it at the time. Right. And I thought, this is a perfect fit. Like, this is me, right? Like, this is what I'm all about. So that's when I made my transition into security.
And then what's the path look like since then for you?
Yeah, so it's been moving from essentially looking at security as a technical matter, right? And I think a lot of us have now very firmly understand that, right? But originally it was a technical matter. Right. You know, it was the geek walking into the room saying, hey, no, you can't do that. Right. You have to stop doing that. No, we can't enable that, et cetera. And moving from that and from, you know, sort of taking the understanding that, yes, there's a lot of technology involved in cybersecurity, of course. And there are a lot of great controls, and there are a lot of things that, you know, it would be great to shut them off or not enable them or remove them or whatever the case may be. But that it's about the business, right? It's about business risk. Right. Like, I think, you know, and I don't know, I'm not a futurist, but I know we went from information security to cybersecurity. I have a feeling at some point we're going to move to some other term, you know, that's going to perhaps include the word business in there, the word risk, perhaps. Yeah. Right, and stop even calling it cybersecurity, because it's about business risk.
I like that. I agree with you. I think the learnings that we've had on this show over the last year of getting started, it's really been that theme. But it's also interesting. I think it's interesting because we also still have folks that jump up and down on the table, saying that if you're not technical, then you really can't be either a CISO or a higher level, you know, executive or leader. What are your thoughts on that? Are we kind of stuck in this paradigm? What do we look like when it comes to our development?
Yeah, so I'm going to quote what a former boss of mine said to me one time in our one-on-one, where I sat there and I said to him, you know, regarding my development, I said, I'm very concerned because I do not consider myself a subject matter expert at any technology, right? Or any group of technology. So identity and access management or whatever else you want to choose, right? I don't consider myself a subject matter expert. And he said to me, Alan, you know, you're going to be a CISO. I see that in you. And you don't have to worry about being an SME in any of those technologies or any of those areas, because you will hire the SMEs. And that was eye-opening for me. It really, really was. Because I had struggled tremendously up to that point. I felt, let's just say, inferior in every conversation and every which way you could imagine professionally. Right. And that got me thinking after he made that comment to me. And I thought, yes. So then, okay, if I'm going to be a CISO, and I'm hiring the subject matter experts, but still the question is, what do I need to know, right? And, you know, part of what he talked to me about and part of what I've discovered in my own search and journey is certainly leadership, right? Strategy, you know, so how do you, and, you know, I won't extrapolate that too much, but how do you lead the group? Right. You know, how do you grab these SMEs, right, that you're hiring? First of all, how do you have to have some level of technical acumen. So I'm not dismissing that by any means, right? You can't just walk in and, you know, absolutely off the street and say, hey, I was a short order cook and now I'm the CISO. That's not going to work. And there's some companies that perhaps have done that and we know it didn't work for them.
Yes.
Yeah. So having the technical acumen, right? So that still needs to be there, right? But, you know, not focusing so much on being a technologist, but rather focusing more on the strategy. And guess what? The business risk, right? Which is what we're there for, right? Essentially, is to help address the business risk and enable the business to actually reach its goals.
So I'm going to ask you to keep your crystal ball out for a little while longer here. So I always kind of had this standard question around, should we professionalize the role? And I can honestly say I never got a negative answer. So I'm going to change the premise of the question a little bit to say, where do we need to go as security practitioners, leaders, and beyond into the executive role CISO, where we're moving in the next, let's say, 5-10 years, right? And you kind of alluded to it, but can we put some more framework around that a little bit, right? So it's business risk, but do we have an opportunity to develop ourselves where?
Yeah.
Right? What is the, again, the Covey thing, start with the end in mind. There's never going to be an end, never, but when we get to that waypoint of 5 years, what should we be developing ourselves to?
I would say more into business leaders, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So rather than looking at the business, in my experience, right, what I've seen happen a lot of times, and I've been a part of it myself, is cybersecurity wants to know what the business is doing so that we could go tell the business, so we could figure out what controls need to be put in place, essentially, right? And how to govern those controls, et cetera. And so, our role, I would say, has been to, understand what the business is doing, but only from the perspective of how are we going to respond to that, right? I think we're needing to, and I know a lot of people are already doing this, very much so. But I think we need to pivot from that perspective to, we need to be an integral part of the business. So we need to be in the discussions about what the business is developing. What is the business strategy? We need to understand the business strategy, and not just from we get the strategy after it's been fully cooked and developed, and now we're just looking at the strategy and figuring out, okay, how are we going to help enable and protect that strategy, if you will, but rather being a part of that strategy, getting invited to the table. And I think that's a challenge to some degree, but I think that what we can do, we can't control, right, how much we get invited, but I think that we can certainly knock on those doors at the very least, and seek to understand what is the actual business strategy. What is the board's talking, the executive leadership team is talking, they've developed a strategy, right? What exactly is that strategy? What does it look like for the next year, 5 years, however long their strategy is? And thinking beyond, like, okay, how do we protect what they want to do, or how do we mitigate risk in what they want to do? But how can we help them achieve the goals faster? More securely, of course. I don't know, just kind of intertwining ourselves in that process more and more. And I do think there'll be, I'm not pessimistic, but I do think there'll be challenges there, or there are challenges, right?
For sure.
Because again, some folks at least will look at us as, well, we're technologists, and why are you here? Right. I just need to talk to you after we have the strategy, after we'll go fill you in, and your job is to just go protect, lock things up, do whatever, right? Monitor, et cetera.
The black box.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So I think it could take some time. Some businesses are more, apt to do this than others, perhaps. But I think it starts with us, to be honest with you. I'm big on ownership, and I think it starts with us.
I agree.
I think it starts with us speaking business, right? And growing our business acumen. So with us, I know we'll probably talk a little bit about professional development at some point, right? But it's us, that being part of our development. It's not just the technology and what's the newest, fad in technology, right? Or whatever, controls we need to put in place, but understanding business and growing so that when we speak to these folks, when we speak to the business, we're speaking business, very much so. And they can, we could garner that respect, if you will, that we're not just technologists, but we're actually business people.
So from part of what you said, what I hear is, getting to the table a little bit, right? Or a lot, actually. So get to the table, be able to advise as this goes on. Is there going to be a time where we're going to be sought out as those experts, or that general business? Like, if I'm a CEO, I'm polling my sub-executive leaders on their stance, because I don't think most of us are there right now, typically. So if I'm a CEO and I'm, hey, what do you think, right? Get invited to that conversation and basically weigh in as a general business person with expertise. Do you think we'll get there anytime in the future?
I think it's up to us, to be frank with you. I really
agree
do.
with you. Yeah.
I would say that it depends on how well we navigate. Let me rephrase that. I think it depends on how well we focus on building our business acumen and our business experience and our business knowledge, right? Our business speak.
Right.
You know, I think it really depends on that and our approach to the business, right? If they see us coming in, if you walk into the room and you know what you're talking about business-wise. So again, I'm talking about technologies, business-wise. You show you have a command of the subject matter. You show you have knowledge, right? You show that it's something that you're intimately involved in, and whatever, at least at a personal level, right? You're learning, you're growing, you're reading, you're on The Economist, you're reading the Wall Street Journal, whatever it is, right? You're using a variety of resources to grow and inform yourself. I think if we walk into the room and that's who's walking in, is a person that is very much focused on the business, is learning about the business internally. So you've gone, like in my case, for example, I've gone to a rent-a-center store, right, and spent time there, just understanding, like, how does this work, right? How do we lease furniture, and what does that look like? Doing things like that, like, so I would say immersing yourself in the business that you work in, right, in that particular business itself, immersing yourself in that particular industry that you're in, and having general business knowledge, general knowledge about economics and finance. So I think if we walk into the room, and that's who walks into the room, right? Again, can't control what the other folks are going to do, or how fast that's going to progress. But I believe that slowly, and in some cases maybe more rapidly, we'll begin to be accepted in that way, and we'll begin to be looked at by the CEO and the CFO and others as people that bring value to the business versus, I'd hate to put it this way, but versus the necessary evil, because, we're splashed on the front page constantly.
Of course. Last question in this little section here. We hosted dinner on Tuesday night. One of the outcomes, or one of the conversation topics, was cybersecurity today overlays pretty much the entire business. I don't know if there's any area that you could say that we don't touch. That's pretty unique compared to other areas, right? We have actual depth and visibility into a lot of things that most people don't, even the business unit owners. Is that a place where we could leverage to be able to further our own stature in, what do you think about that?
Absolutely, and I think that's where it begins, quite frankly. You build the relationships at those levels, right? You and I have experienced it. You build the relationships, and what happens? The word gets out. Of positive relationships.
Absolutely.
Let me qualify that, because I know people that build relationships, but we won't. Positive relationships, right? So, great point. Immerse yourself. Start building the relationship with the business unit leaders, right, or anybody in the business unit, right? But especially the business unit leaders. Show the interest. Show that you're there to learn. Be humble. You're gonna hear me say that a lot.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I sometimes struggle with humility, to be honest with you. Or I like to joke around, right? I wrote a book called I Am Humble, and I'll autograph it for you, but no, I'm kidding. Build those relationships, positive relationships, have a positive impact at that level. So you're learning, right? You're learning yourself. You're building the relationships. You're having an impact at that level. And I think what I would say that should equate to is the word gets out, right? People start to talk, like, oh, that guy, David, Alan, they're fantastic. They don't come and talk to me about technology and give me all sorts of acronyms and mumbo jumbo, or tell me I can't do X, Y, and Z constantly. They come and ask me questions. They're really interested in what I'm doing. They're interested in understanding what I'm doing, the why, the how.
And they're actually giving me insights into what my business unit is doing.
Yes, that's a great point. Yeah, and giving me the feedback, right, that insight.
Right.
Number one, the word will get out. Like, I have no doubt about that. The word will get out, and eventually, I believe that at least a good leader will eventually look at that from the top and think, wow, okay, this is someone that's here that, maybe they thought the person was there just for the technology, but now they've come to realize this person has something valuable to contribute outside of just the technology. And yeah, then you get invited to the table, and then you prove yourself from there.
Love it. All right, so let's talk self and team development a little bit. I want Alain Espinosa's philosophy on this. So kind of give me your overarching umbrella on this.
So this might sound corny, but I call it the Espinosa 3 E's.
Love it.
All right. And that's
Is it in your book?
I forgot to ask you to write the forward for my book.
Well, envelopes on the table.
Thank you. Equip, empower, and encourage. Okay. So I would say, at least in my experience in my career, right? I would say it used to be that folks were not terribly empowered. All right. There used to be a lot more micromanagement happening, across industries, across companies. And I've seen a great shift of empowerment, right? It's like, hey, Alan, go do your thing, right? My boss is not breathing down my throat, and I'm very, very empowered, right? And I've been in a lot of roles where I'm empowered, and I see others that are very empowered. But then what's occurred to me as I've seen that and done that with my own teams at times is that it's great to be empowered. But if I said to you, David, I'm empowering you to go ahead and go run, go win the Boston Marathon. I don't know, something like that. I don't have a great example.
It's okay.
But you don't know what it takes to run a marathon.
Yeah, what does that training look like?
Right. So essentially, I just put you in a position that at first may feel good to some degree. At least to me, it would feel good.
Right.
Because I feel like, hey, I've done something great for you. But to you, it may not feel so good. Because you're like, well, but I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
And I don't know how to do this. And now I feel a great deal of pressure to do this. So anyhow, so thus the equipping part, starting with that, is do your folks have what they need? It's not about micromanaging. It's not about being perfect or an expert either. It's about, do they fundamentally have what they need? Do they have what they need to start? And do they have what they need to run the race and figure things out in the process and continue to develop? That's the question there. The empower, thing self-explanatory, right? It's like, I believe in allowing people the chance to go out and show your stuff. You're going to show your stuff either in a good way or in a bad way, but you're going to show your stuff, right? And to not get in the way. And then encouragement. Another part, another element that in my career I've often found lacking, quite honestly, where it's like, and I'm not talking about participation trophies. Right. Thank you for coming in on time.
Right.
Like, absolutely not. Right. Okay. I even tell my team that there's no reward. I'm not going to thank you like ever.
For the bare minimum.
Yeah, because you came in on time, right, and did what you're supposed to. Like, it's not going to happen.
Right.
I'm not going to thank you for that. But encouragement, encouragement, by the way, comes whether a person is succeeding or whether they're having challenges.
Right.
You can encourage in both. So anyway, that's my kind of overall philosophy. That's what I focus on, and wanting to see folks succeed.
Any practical nuggets out of there? Obviously, this framework is great, but like in your experience, you have like a story or something that you can say, okay, here's kind of one example, maybe some takeaways for the audience. I always like to have folks to kind of walk away with some stuff. Yes.
So my approach. What does that look like for me?
Right.
Frankly, first of all, it's getting to know my people. Right. So I do my one-on-ones every week, 30 minutes with each person, sometimes a little bit longer. And I have a format that I follow that I got from a great manager that I had once. And that's first 10 minutes is theirs to talk about anything they want. And I tell them, I say, you could sit down and talk to me about how you went fishing this weekend. That's fine. It doesn't have to be about work. Right? The next 10 minutes are mine for whatever the heck I want to talk about. And again, that could be anything, right? It could be just something I want to share with them.
Right.
That's, again, not work related potentially. Right? In the last 10 minutes, at least, we focus on professional development. And so my goal overall is getting to know them, right? Getting to know not just their skill set, which is important, right? And that you see throughout the day and the weeks and such as well. But getting to know them as a person, what makes them tick? What's their personality like, so that I could better relate to them, right? Getting to understand what are their challenges. What do they see as their own challenges? Right? Or what challenges might I see in them? And also when it comes to professional development, is where do they want to go? What does that look like? So taking all of that into account helps inform the equipping part, right? Because like, well, what does this person need, right? How can I best help them, right? The empowerment, where can I empower this person? Where maybe should I not? Perhaps either because they're not ready or it'd be bad for them, and not just maybe for me alone or for the business. And then the encouragement part is, what kind of feedback does this person need? People need different feedback. I have folks that, they need feedback in different ways, right? One to the other, let's just say, including myself,
Right.
So that's, I would say at its basic level is how I approach addressing the 3 E's. And I spend a lot of time talking about professional development, to be quite frank with you. And my thought on that is, and what I tell my folks is, listen, while you're here, I want you to do great things while you're here. Okay, great things. So, and that's why you're here.
Right.
I mean, that's why they're getting paid.
Exactly.
Right? It's not for any other reason
Right.
than to bring value to the organization. While you're here, I want you to do great things. I want you to learn. I want you to grow. But I want it to be in such a way that you're growing holistically. And it's not just about being here alone, per se. Right? That this is something that you're going to grow here, right? Where, and you're going to take that with you. And it's going to make you, first of all, it's going to help you with your next role. Maybe it's internal. Maybe it's an internal promotion. But maybe it isn't, right? Realistically speaking. Maybe it's elsewhere. But it's going to help you get that role, and it's going to help you be successful at that role, and also help for the person to continue to develop. That is honestly, and I mean it wholeheartedly, that is my goal. If one of my team members came to me today and said they were leaving, and they got a role that they felt was better for them and for their career and their life, while I may be sad to see them go, right? I tell you very honestly, it's already happened multiple times over, that I celebrate with them, I congratulate them. And I celebrate even after they're gone. I get messages from folks that used to be on my teams in the past that still contact me and say, "Hey, Alan," they update me on what they're doing. I'm like a proud papa.
Yes.
I really am. And
Absolutely.
not because, and don't get me wrong, not because I credit myself with their success. Because there's so many factors, right? I was just a part of their journey. Right. That's all I am, right? But I'm a proud papa because I think, wow, like here's so-and-so, and I get to see how they grew. And I get to see what they're doing now, and it's amazing. To me, it's like, if I could just do that all day long, right? I'd love it.
So, let's talk about Alan's journey in board readiness. So it's a hot topic lately. Yeah. We're covering it kind of multiple places. I've had Chris Hetner on from NACD a while back, a couple weeks ago, from this state. And then got more coming, mutual people that we know. And so talking about, okay, first tell us what your kind of status is right now. So what do you hold as far as certs? What are you going for? We'll start there, and then we'll kind of talk about the philosophical pieces of it.
Yeah, so concerning boards, so I'm certified by the Private Directors Association, by PDA, also by DDN. I have the QT, Qualified Technology Expert. I'm working right now on a certification from the Institute of Excellence in Corporate Governance from UTD. So it's more of a nonprofit focused one. And I'm about to take my exam soon for NACD, for Director Certification. So that's where that stands. In terms of my journey, so a couple of years ago, or practically 3 years ago at this point, there was a lot of talk about the SEC and how they may at the time potentially require a qualified technology expert, right? I think was the term they used at the time, to sit on boards, right? Now, at the time when that was happening, there was a lot of buzz at least from my perspective, in the CISO community, like, hey, amazing opportunity. We're all going to be on boards, right? It's just like, it's going to be gangbusters sale on us and boards. It's going to be amazing. I'll be honest with you. I bought into that, and I thought, oh,
here we go.
I'm going to be on a board someday. And I wasn't delusional. I understood that maybe I wasn't ready at the time, right? Like I got that part. I knew it would take something to get me there, right? I thought that something would be, nailing a CISO role at some big company or whatnot. Right. That's what I thought at the time. Well, let me summarize for you my journey in those last almost 3 years. From my perspective, of course. what I've come to realize, especially after getting involved with NACD, with PDA, right? I've come to realize that, in my estimation, no, being a CISO, even if you are the CISO of a Fortune 20 company,
Right.
is not just going to automatically secure you a board seat, right? I've also come to realize that having these certifications is also not going to be something that automatically, I don't believe, I could be wrong, and if anybody wants to do it, go for it, but I don't believe that anyone's going to contact me and say, Alan, I just saw you on the podcast with David, and man, it's great. You're getting your NACD, you have your PDA, you're from the other one from UTD, et cetera, and your QTE. You're in.
Yep.
Welcome
You're in
to
the
the
club.
board.
Yeah.
Listen, I really don't expect that to happen. Maybe if it was a smaller company or something, like really small. But no, I don't expect certainly not a publicly traded company to do that, or a large cap company by any means whatsoever. What I've realized in my journey is that, first of all, to be on a board, you have to be well-rounded. And I don't want to say things that, others that I know you're going to have on are going to talk about, because they're going to give you some great insight. But
Well, you can always give us a little trickle here. I mean,
okay,
it's okay.
you have to be a well-rounded business executive, right? So going back to what I talked about earlier, how do we even get in front of the C-suite and gain that respect and that acknowledgement?
And I want to call that out, right? Because, I mean, that's a gap. Generally, if we talk about CISOs in general, I'm not, we know ones that are out there doing it right. They're on boards. They're doing it right. And then we have the, and I don't want to put it in this stark contrast, but I am, because that's what we do here. There's the purely technical, let's say, right? Or the control-based, like you said earlier in the interview. That's a gap, because if you're saying the demand or the expectation is that you're going to have a well-rounded business executive, and I'm maybe coming out of being that technical control-based CISO into just starting my journey as a well-rounded executive, there's a challenge, right? Then the big claw's not going to come down and select me for that board seat. And I'll be disappointed.
Yes. So there is a challenge.
Okay.
Absolutely. And yes, I like, as you said, there are a number of CISOs that have tremendous business acumen, right? And they're really immersed, and then some that are not, quite frankly.
So we just talked about the one to get the seat at the table, the business acumen to get the seat at the table. Are those the same business acumen you need to be a well-rounded board member?
Yes, they are, right, if you will. And I think to get that seat at the table at a board, you have to prove even further that you've had that business experience. So maybe if to get the seat at the table at the C-level, right, and talk about business strategy, I think at minimum you have to prove that you have that business acumen, that you've been studying up, right? You have the knowledge, you have the interest, and all that. But to get the seat at the board table, that you have to prove beyond that. You have to prove that you have that business experience, right? That you've actually worked so closely with the business, not just to understand requirements, but that you've been a part of making strategic business decisions. Because as a board member, that's what you're going to do. You're not just going to talk about, you're not just there for a single purpose, right? Boards bring on folks based on whatever skill matrix that they've developed that they require for that specific company and industry, right? That's how, a part of at least, how boards select board members, right? So sure, they may, a board may think that, or may determine that they need someone with a strong cybersecurity, sort of acumen and experience and all that. But there's so much more you're going to be involved in. You're not just, a CISO, let's just say, sitting on a board is not solely going to sit there quiet, not participate in anything, and only get that look.
Right.
And the finger pointer's like, so David,
you're on.
All of a sudden, exactly. You're on because we're talking about technology.
Right.
No, you have a fiduciary responsibility. You have the responsibility to make all sorts of provide input and strategy and guidance on all sorts of matters. So it's going to take a lot more.
Interesting. Okay, so real quick on your journey, because unfortunately we are running up on time.
Okay.
So, look, when you talk to Alain Espinosa, you're, and it's not a thing. Like, there's so much that you provide. Like in our conversation previously, I'm going to have to reserve some time for you in the future to let's get the rest of this, and then obviously we want to hear about your journey as well. So, we'll revisit with Alain for sure. What what did you feel like on your journey, whether it be the current one that you're gonna take, or the ones that you've already taken, or the classes that you're taking? Kind of what did you already know, right? What were the things that you were like, okay, I see some pattern here of stuff that I know, and then what were some of the biggest learnings? Like, were some of the click over? You go, okay, I'm gonna have to study this. I'm gonna have to, expand my knowledge base around this. Like, give me the kind of the two opposites.
Yeah. So what I already knew was essentially that I had a lot more to learn.
I set you up for that one.
David, I'm telling you, man, I'm going to be very honest with you. That is the absolute truth. I always knew that I had a lot more to learn, but what I didn't know is what it was that I needed to learn.
Right.
So I thought that what I needed to learn was more technology, to be frank with you.
Interesting.
Kind of going back, right, to that whole problem I had where I thought, I'm not an SME, I need to be an SME, right?
Yeah.
So I kept thinking, where do I need to specialize, right? But then now what I've realized is, that's not what I need to do. What I need to do is definitely continue to grow as a leader. And I highly recommend that everybody always continue that. We've never arrived, ever. I don't care if you're the CISO or even the CEO or whatever of, Fortune 1 company, right?
Right.
If you will, whoever that is today, Apple or Walmart.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You have not arrived. Keep learning. So I've realized that, leadership, continue the leadership. And then what I realized, my gap, part of my gap was business, is having financial experience, financial knowledge, right? Accounting knowledge. Right. That's a big deal.
It is.
We talk about boards. I know we don't have time to go into that, but that's a big deal. You have to, if you're going to walk into a board, you better have financial acumen, without a doubt. Yeah. And so that's what I'm focusing on right now. Is I'm doing business school and going for my MBA and all that good stuff. And just really focusing more than anything on gaining that financial knowledge, which of course I'll put to practice at work.
Absolutely.
So now when I hear certain words, I know what they mean.
Right.
Which is
and
great.
Why they're important.
Exactly. Why? Right. Exactly. That's that and I'd be remiss if I don't mention quickly mentoring.
Please.
In this realm. We don't have time for the whole story, but many years ago, over 20-something years ago, I heard about mentoring and I thought, I need that. I didn't understand it fully. I didn't understand how to execute on that. But nowadays, the people, I mentor lots of folks, and I'm mentored by lots of folks. And what I say to everybody is, you should have mentors in your life. Some are going to be very, for a specific purpose, right? There's something specific that you're looking to do or that you need guidance on. Some will be more long-term. Others will be, ad hoc. It's that phone call to you maybe where I'm like, hey, David, tell me about this, Absolutely. Right? I need your help.
Yeah.
But the idea that, number one, we're not alone. We shouldn't do it alone. I won't get too philosophical here, but there's no such thing as doing it alone.
Right.
Let's just put it that way. And for goodness sake, don't do it alone.
Right.
Because there's so many amazing people and resources. And not everybody, what I tell my mentees right off the bat is, I don't know everything, nor do I think I'm necessarily right on everything. You could discover later I was so wrong about something. But I have experience. There are things that I've learned, and this is where I'll leave it at. There are things I have learned that I wish somebody would have at least whispered them to me
Introduced you to early.
Exactly.
Yes, just the concept.
Even at that, yeah.
Because you're not going to get on an expert level, right? But at least whisper in my ear so I can be like, okay, there's something that I've got to keep on my consciousness as I go through this journey.
Exactly.
Boom.
Exactly. And so I'm beyond grateful because I am where I'm at because of all the people in my life. It's not like I'm just incredible and I just did it by myself. I did not. Wherever I get to, it'll be because of all the people in my life and I'm a blessed man. That's period. But so I want to leave everybody with that nugget. Have mentors in your life. Right? Mentor others because no matter where you are at your journey, regardless of where you are, and even if you've made a gazillion mistakes, which my number keeps growing, right? You have something valuable.
Yes.
Many things, I'm sure more than just one, that you can impart to someone else and help improve that person's life, help them on their journey, so continue to be mentored yourself, mentor others, and we continue to help each other through this journey.
Love it. All right, gang. It is time for 10 questions with Alain Espinosa. What's your favorite word?
Favorite word?
What's your favorite word?
Favorite word, period, just general word.
Yep.
Okay, it's verbiage, and I'll tell you why. Because people pronounce it verbiage, but it's pronounced verbiage. And this is just like something that occurred to me years ago. I hear verbiage, and I used it. I used that verbiage many times over. And I'll look at the word one day, and I thought, that's not how it's spelled, but you know English, right? That doesn't necessarily mean anything. And I went and I looked it up, and it's verbiage. And so now, and I, you know, it's like everybody, English professors say verbiage.
What's your least favorite word?
Processes. Because it's not a word, it's processes. So, and I'm not an English snob, by the way, because I'm sure somebody will correct my English from this.
But we are talking about words, so it's okay.
That's it.
What area of your work do you find most interesting?
Really understanding the business. Like ever since that went off in my head where it was like, hey, you need to like really know the business. That's so interesting because it's so complex. There's so much to learn. There's so many moving parts. And it's I would say the number one reason it's interesting to me is putting the pieces together where now it's like, oh, now I see why, you know, whether I agree or not is a different story, but now I see why certain decisions are made, right? Even outside of technology, you know, so it's just, yeah, super interesting.
What area of your work is the most challenging for you?
Balancing wanting to deliver, of course, needing to deliver, right? And the human side, the human element. You know, it's like having empathy and being graceful to folks and understanding that, hey, you know, there's a project that's due. That's important. That's why we get paid. That's why I'm there.
Right.
But balancing that so I'm not just a hammer, you know, but instead having, you know, understanding these are human beings just like I am. Right. So.
What sound or noise do you love?
Sound or noise do I love? Hear my wife's voice, quite honestly.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Clicking of the nails.
Oh,
yeah. I have you know how some people they hear phosphorescent lights and it freaks them out. If I hear that, and I'll tell you a story some other time about that, it's just like you have to stop.
What's your favorite curse word?
So, it's kind of funny because I don't curse very often in English. Quite frankly, it's kind of rare. But in Spanish, I have this one word I just use. I mean, I use it no matter what language I'm speaking, and it's coño. It's a bad word, but I can't. I'm Cuban, and it just kind of tends to be in our vocabulary, and so yeah, it just comes out.
All right, everybody's reaching for their Spanish to English dictionary now. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh wow, that's a great question. You know, I would be interested in maybe being a COO. You know, just like operations and the strategy at that level. That just seems interesting to me. I don't know, you know, would I be good at it? Would I not? I have no idea. But it seems really interesting.
That wasn't a requirement of the question.
Yeah. So we'll see where my path leads me.
Yeah,
right?
There you go. What profession would you not like to do?
Definitely not anything in healthcare. Well, let me be specific about that. So I would not want to be like a nurse, for example. Like I've been hospitalized and all, and I appreciate so much what they did.
Absolutely.
For me, it was amazing. It just wouldn't be my thing. I think I'd have a tough time.
I tell people it's a personal preference. It's not an indictment on anyone. You know, I've had ones that are like, I don't want to be medical because of blood, right?
For me, by the way, it's you know, I'm really good at emergency situations and, you know, being stoic and executing. But if I have to walk into someone's room every day and I know they're dying or whatever, they're suffering, like I just can't see it.
All right, final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear your God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Wow. I would love to hear God say, hey man, I'm proud of you. You know, you didn't do everything perfectly. You didn't do everything that you perhaps were supposed to do, you know, but I'm proud of you and you know, and I appreciate you and love you. That's it.
Love it. Well, Alan, thank you so much for coming on. Truly appreciate it. Obviously, lots there. I think again, more to come. We'll find some more time, and because I think quite the interesting conversation for sure. And we did leave some stuff, you know, in the pocket, so to speak. So there's plenty. Colleagues and friends, I renew the call. It's time to professionalize the role of CISO. Until next time, I wish you health, happiness, and success in your journey in becoming the professional CISO. Let's do this.
We're professionalizing the CISO role, so please subscribe to the Professional CISO podcast.